Unit 4, which is sales management, we have till now discussed the scope and objectives of sales management. Then we moved on to the different theories of selling, and we discussed 4 of the theories in detail. Then we talked a little bit about personal selling and what all does it entail and in which kind of situations is it used. Then, if you remember, in the last session that we had, we were basically talking about the process of the personal selling process. And we had seen that out of these 8 steps, the first 3 of them we had covered in the last session, right? In this session, we are going to cover the remaining steps. So let us start our discussion. We have already discussed the first step, which is about prospecting or generating leads. Then we had talked about qualifying the leads generated in the first step into hot, warm and cold. And then we talked about pre-approach, which is nothing but obtaining information about the prospect and planning the sales visit to that particular prospect. So this was what pre-approach is. And once you are through with pre-approach, we had seen that once you are through with pre-approach, you would have decided your call objective and the mode of contact as per the convenience of the prospect. Then comes the 4th step, which is basically approach. And this approach would be dependent on the kind of planning that you have done in the pre-approach step. Now, what will you basically be doing in the approach? You will be actually visiting the prospect and trying to convince him to buy your product, or try to convince him to at least check a sample of your product. So this would be your objective of this particular step. So what do we do basically in approach? We go to the prospect and we try and make him buy the product. But when you approach the prospect, there are some points which you have to take into account, some important tips that you'll have to keep in your mind. One is that you start by greeting the buyer. In fact, the buyer probably is not technically very sound here. The correct usage should be the prospect. So you'll have to greet the prospect. Hello sir. And you'll have to not only greet the prospect, but you'll have to introduce yourself. So you would say, hello sir, I'm so and so from this particular firm, and I have come to visit you so that I can demonstrate to you how this particular product of ours works. So this is how you are going to greet your buyer. You'll have to show courtesy, and courtesy would mean respect here. So you'll have to show respect to the buyer, because it may so happen that the buyer might get turned off because of your way of talking to him, and he may ultimately decide not to buy your product. So you'll have to show him courtesy, show him respect, and you also have to listen attentively. Why are you starting off with listening rather than starting off with presenting your product to the buyer? Because you are basically trying to find out what are the needs of the prospect, the buyer, the prospective buyer. You are trying to find out what is it that he is looking forward to in the product that he is going to buy from you. What are the needs? What are his problems that he is facing, which he wants to solve through the product which is being sold by you? So you'll have to listen to him very attentively, and this would help you gain some extra information about the requirement of the buyer, requirement of the prospect, and this would help you customize your presentation, which we'll be discussing in the next step, as per the requirements of the buyer. Again, please avoid distracting mannerisms. Anything that distracts the buyer should be avoided. For example, you should not be staring at the buyer. Again, you should not be shabbily dressed also, because that can also act as a distraction, and the prospect may not want to pay attention to you, may not be willing to pay attention to you, just because you are distracting him unknowingly, of course, by staring at him or by being dressed up in shabby clothes. Again, you will have to ask questions to assess prospect needs. Now this is very, very important. We have discussed this yesterday also. We discussed we need to know as to what is it that the prospect is looking forward to in the product. What is it that the prospect wants in the product? So that is something that you have to know, and for that you'll have to ask questions. And then you will have to assess whether your product or service would be able to solve the problem that the prospect is facing, right? So this is one assessment that you'll have to make. Now once you have done this, once you have listened to the requirements of the prospect, then the next step is presentation and demonstration. Herein you will be talking about your product or the service that you are offering. You will be giving a presentation. You will also at times be required to make a demonstration in front of the buyer, in front of the prospect, as to how your product works. So presentation and demonstration are two things that you will be doing in your fifth step. Now the presentation would mean that you will have to somehow attract the attention of the buyer, and then you will have to hold his interest. We have discussed this AIDA model. Then you will have to arouse desire in him, and then finally you want him to actually act on his desire, actually place an order with you. So this is the same AIDA model that we have discussed in the earlier units also. So attract attention, then hold the prospect's interest, and then arouse the desire in him to buy your product, and then ultimately make him act, make him purchase your product or make him place an order for your product. So this is going to be the steps that you are going to follow. This is going to be your prime objective in this particular step. Now while making your presentation, don't focus on the attributes but focus on the benefits. Now what is the difference? See, for example, if I talk about Dettol soap, now one of the attribute is that, let's say, it has a particular chemical in it. So that is the attribute of that particular soap. But what is the benefit? The benefit is that it does not let the cut mark that you have had to become septic. Now this is the benefit. So don't focus on attribute, don't focus on the technical features of product, focus on how these attributes help the prospect. So what are the benefits of these attributes for the prospect? So for example, if you are selling the car, don't talk about the torque, don't talk about the engine capacity, don't talk about the power of the AC that you are having in the car, right? Don't talk about features like power drive, power steering. Just tell him as to what is the benefit of these attributes, because the prospect may not be able to understand these technical features, but he understands the benefits that these attributes would give him. So tell him that, don't tell him that this car has a power steering. Tell him that you don't need to exert great force to turn the steering. You can turn the steering with just one finger also. So this is the benefit which has happened because of the car having power steering. So power steering was an attribute, while the benefit is what we are going to focus on, because the prospect understands the benefit. He may or may not understand the attribute. For example, if you are purchasing a television, the pixel size, for example, or supposing you are purchasing some camera, may be an attribute, but the benefit is that the picture that you take using this particular camera is clear. So this is the benefit. Don't focus only on the attribute. Don't focus, for example, if you are trying to sell a mobile phone, don't focus on the speed of the microprocessor. Tell the buyer that he can use multiple applications on the smartphone, because this is the benefit that is derived of having good quality processors. So don't talk about the processors, that it is quad core, Pentium and all that stuff. Talk about the benefit that the prospect will get because of these attributes. Now please understand, different kind of presentation styles are there. So let's talk about them one by one. One of these presentation styles is known as canned presentation. Canned means, I hope you understand, can means some kind of a container. Now this is canned presentation, which means the presentation is already there with you and you are simply delivering it without making any changes. So it is a memorized sales talk. This is an example of a canned presentation. So the sales talk, you have memorized it, and regardless of what is the specific requirement of a particular prospect, you deliver that sales talk. So you are not at all concerned with what is it that the prospect is looking for. On the other hand, then we've got formulated presentation. In formulated presentation, what happens is the salesperson identifies the buyer needs and then uses a pre-formulated approach. So here it is one step ahead of canned presentation, because at least the salesperson tries to identify the buyer needs, but still the presentation is a pre-formulated one. It is still not fully customized to the buyer requirements, though you have identified the buyer needs. The third presentation style is called the need satisfaction approach. Here the buyer needs are not only found, the salesperson would then focus his talk on these buyer needs rather than using some pre-existing presentation that he already has, which happened in the first two cases. So now he would be making presentation which would be entirely focused on the buyer requirements, the prospect requirements, prospect needs. And the salesperson would not simply be trying to sell his product, but he would be trying to sell a solution to the problem that the prospect is facing, to the problem that the buyer is facing. So you are not trying to just sell your product. The objective is to sell a solution to the buyer so that the buyer is able to solve whatever problem he is facing. And once he is able to solve that particular problem, he will always be satisfied, and then he would probably purchase again from you. So this is the objective here, right? And so you can understand that this is the best approach. However, when you feel that the different buyers may not have widely different needs, may not have widely different requirements from the product that you are selling, then you can go for these two approaches also, because in that case you don't need to customize your presentation, right? Again, while you are making your presentation, to make your presentation more effective, what you can do, you can come up with demonstration aids, right? What do we mean by demonstration aids? Those properties, those props which help you in demonstrating the working of the product. So you may go with the actual model of the product also. So you may go with a working model of the product. You may carry one product with you. For example, if you are selling, let's say, a mixie, so you can go along with your mixie to the buyer and show him actually how the mixie functions. So this could be one way, but then it may not always be possible. Think, for instance, if you are a salesperson who is trying to sell a tractor, you would probably not be able to carry your tractor everywhere, or maybe an industrial generator, you would not be able to do that. So in such cases, you can make use of other demonstration aids like booklets and brochures. You can take these booklets, you can take along flip charts which you can use while making your presentation, even if there is no projector there or no overhead projector there. Then you can make use of slides, PowerPoint presentations. You can also show movies which will depict how the product is functioning. So you'll show the video which actually depicts how the product is functioning. For example, if you want to talk about the good quality of the car that you are selling, you may not be able to demonstrate to the buyer how the engine of that particular car functions from inside. However, if you have got a movie which shows this, that is something that you can share with the buyer. Again, you can make use of PowerPoint presentations also, right? So all these demonstration aids will help you make more effective presentations. Then once you are through with this, naturally what will happen? The buyer would ask questions, he would have queries, he would have some doubts, he might have some objections to purchasing your product. So now the sixth step would then be overcoming these objections and resistances. So you have made your presentation in the last step. Now the buyer would have some reservations, some objections, and he would probably also be having some questions. So you'll have to respond to those queries and you'll have to satisfy his doubts. So the sixth step is overcoming the objections, resistances, right? Now please understand that there are two different types of resistance. One resistance is called logical. And what do we mean by resistance? The buyer is not buying your product. He is not ready to buy your product. He is resisting your attempt to sell him your product. So that is an example of resistance. So resistance can be of two types. One is logical resistance, which is actually based on some fact. For example, the product characteristics are not as per the buyer requirement, or the buyer is not very happy with the price or the delivery schedule. He wants faster delivery, but you are not able to guarantee him a faster delivery, or maybe he wants some discount but you are not ready to give him a discount. So these are logical resistance because they are actually based on some solid reality. So that is why they are logical resistance. But then there can be psychological resistances also, which are not actually based on some reality, which are not actually based on some facts, but they are some kind of prejudices that the buyer may have, or some kind of risk aversion that he has to buying a new product, right? And what are these psychological resistances? Please have a look. He knows that your product is a better one, but he still prefers the current supplier. He does not want to switch. He does not want to switch from the current supplier to you, though he knows very well that your product is the superior one, is better than his current supplier, but he does not want to switch. So this is a psychological resistance. Again, he does not want to make decision because naturally when he is buying, this kind of decision entails a lot of risk, so he does not want to take that kind of a risk. So he is risk averse. He does not want to risk a wrong decision, so he is simply not making a decision. He is continuing with the current buyer. He is not actually placing an order with you because that would entail a decision which may turn out to be risky over a period of time. Then it may so happen that the salesperson reminds him of something unpleasant. For example, salesperson wears spectacles, goggles, and this buyer has been fooled by a salesperson earlier who also used to wear goggles. Now these goggles actually remind him of that particular salesperson who had actually duped this particular buyer. So the moment this buyer sees you with the goggles, that unpleasant association is recalled in his mind, and then he thinks that he is not going to buy from you because he probably feels that you might also want to dupe him. So that is an example of unpleasant associations which are created by sales representatives. Then money mindedness. The buyer simply does not want to spend his money, so he's so money minded. This could be another reason why he's resisting purchasing from you. Again, he's got predetermined ideas. He's already made up his mind. You are giving his presentation, but he's already made up his mind that your product is not good, or that your product is not as good as is the current product being purchased by him. So he's already made his mind, and this is what we mean by predetermined ideas. So these are all psychological resistances, right? And I tell you what, psychological resistances are relatively difficult to deal with. Logical resistance, you can provide logic, counter logics to deal with such resistance and overcome such resistance, but that may not be possible with psychological resistances. How do you overcome resistance? Asking buyer to clarify your objections, to clarify their objections. So if, for example, a buyer is making an objection to buying from you, then you ask him to clarify his objection. Now this would also give you some time to respond to his objections. So you would say, okay sir, can you please come again with your objection? What actually is the thing that is stopping you from buying the product? Sir, please tell me again. So this is asking buyer to clarify objections. Or you may outrightly, have a look at this particular point, outrightly deny the validity of objections. For example, he says that supposing you are selling a car and he says, नहीं आपकी कार का AC तो अच्छा नहीं है, बहुत powerful नहीं है. So you outrightly deny the validity of this objection. You say, no sir, that is not the case. Our AC is the best in the market, right? So you outrightly deny whatever the buyer is saying, whatever the objections he is raising, right? However, I am not saying that you have to make false claims. Don't do that, because you may be able to sell to the buyer for the first time, but you may never get a repurchase from him. So you should not be doing that. You have to deny the validity of buyer's objection by giving some solid arguments, true arguments which are closer to the real truth about your product. So don't try to dupe the buyer also. Again, you can turn the objections into reasons for buying. I remember when salesperson in Maruti Suzuki, they tried to sell Zen. They used to tell the customer, Zen basically has a smaller space, seating space is much less than WagonR. So whenever they used to sell Zen, the buyers would always object. The WagonR is relatively bigger from inside, so the seating space is much more than just Zen. So they used to turn this into reasons for buying. So they would say, sir, seating space is a little less in Zen, Maruti Zen, than when you compare it with WagonR. But still 5 passengers can sit, which includes the driver, which is the case with WagonR also. And since the seating space is a little less, the AC would be more effective. So now they have turned the reason given by the buyer into reason for buying the product. Turn the objection of the buyer into reason for buying the product. So for this, you need to be very, very creative, and you need to know about your product that you are selling. Again, one more tactics can be to question the buyer in a way that he answers his own objections. So you question the buyer in a way that he answers his own objections. For example, he may say कि आपका प्रोडक्ट वैसे तो बढ़िया है, लेकिन जो प्रोडक्ट अभी मैं ले रहा हूँ उसके मुकाबले बढ़िया तो है, लेकिन दाम ज़्यादा है. Now this is one objection that he is having. So you have to question him in a way that he answers his own objection. So you can tell him कि सर दाम ज़्यादा आप सोचिए क्यों होंगे हमारे प्रोडक्ट के. Then he'll say कि because probably your product is a better quality product. जी सर, हमारे ingredients ज़्यादा better हैं. We use better quality raw material, better quality spare parts. That is why our product is relatively costlier than the other rival products in the market. Now this way, the buyer is able to answer his own objections, and now he understands that not buying a particular product from the salesperson just because it is costly is not a very good idea, because this particular product might be costly because it is a better product, it is a higher quality product. So in this manner, the buyer answers his own objections, and now he's convinced about buying product from you, right? Now let us move to the next step. Once you have answered all his objections, once you have overcome all the resistance on the part of the buyer, then the next step for you is to close the sales. Now what do we mean by close the sales? How do you close the sales? So what do we mean by closing? Basically, closing means getting some order from him, right? And how do you decide whether the buyer also wants you to close the sales? So there are some signals which are emitted by the buyer. For example, he may ask some questions, or he may use some gestures which show you that okay, the buyer now is satisfied and convinced, and he just wants this meeting to end. So this is what you understand from the gestures being used by him, or maybe the statements or comments being made by him. Okay, for example, if the buyer says like this, okay, okay. Now this you understand that now he wants the sales meeting to come to an end, and before that you will have to make the buyer to place an order, right? So what are the closing techniques? You know that either the buyer wants the sales meeting to end, or you also are through with your presentation, you don't have anything left for the buyer, you have explained all the features, and now you want the sales meeting to close, to end. Then what are the closing techniques you can use? You can ask for order. तो सर कितने कर दूं सर, 2 लेंगे या 3? Or you can recapitulate the points of agreement. So whatever has been decided between you and the buyer, you can recapitulate. सर तो हमारा सर ये डिसाइड हुआ कि मैं आपको 15 तारीख तक 3 यूनिट्स जनरेटर्स भिजवाऊंगा, और सर इसकी 2 साल की वारंटी हमारी तरफ से रहेगी. ये सर हम लोगों का डिसाइड हो गया. नाउ दिस इज रिकैपिटुलेटिंग द पॉइंट्स ऑफ द एग्रीमेंट कि द डिलीवरी शेड्यूल वुड बी दिस, एंड द फ्री वारंटी वुड बी प्रोवाइडेड, or free servicing would be provided for the next 2 years. So these were the points of agreement, and now the salesperson is recapitulating them, doing a recap of them. Now this will indicate to the buyer that the sales meeting is about to come to an end. Or you can help the secretary, you can offer your help so that the secretary can write the order. Now this would be in the case of B2B, where the buying committee would be different and the secretary would be there to assist the buying committee, which will actually be writing the order. So you'll offer your help and you'll say कि okay सर, मैं secretary साहब जो हैं, पांडे साहब, इनको मैं order लिखने में मदद कर दूंगा. So this will indicate to the buyer that okay, you are going to finish your sales call now. Or you can ask the buyer which variant, color, size buyer would buy. So you may ask him, तो सर कौन सा वाला वेरिएंट लेंगे सर, ये येलो पेपी येलो में दूँ या पर्पल कलर वाली कार, आप कौन सा ऑर्डर करना चाहेंगे सर, LX वर्जन लेंगे LXI वर्जन. Now this again is an indicator for the buyer that you are about to close the meeting, about to end the meeting. Again, you can indicate what buyer loses if he doesn't place the order then. So you can tell him कि सर अगर आज सर ऑर्डर कर देते हैं तो सर आपको 10% डिस्काउंट मिलेगा, और अगले 15 दिन में ऑर्डर करते हैं तो सर 30th तक आपको 10% डिस्काउंट मिलेगा सर, उसके बाद डिस्काउंट नहीं होगा. सो द बायर अंडरस्टैंड्स दैट इफ डज नॉट प्लेस द ऑर्डर there and then he would be losing on the discount. So this can be another tactics. And another very popular technique is to offer inducements. Many times you go to the car dealership, then they will say, tell you sir we would also be giving you some accessories, आपको सर हम कार के साथ ही सर एक्सेसरीज देंगे कुछ, फॉर एग्जाम्पल फ्री मैट हम लोग प्रोवाइड करेंगे. सो यू आर ऑफरिंग इंड्यूसमेंट्स so that the buyer may place the order with you, for example extra quantity or some special price or some kind of a gift, right? So this way you have indicated to the buyer that the meeting has now come to an end, and then as a result of this the buyer would be placing an order. Now what will happen once the buyer has placed the order? Is that the end of everything? No, you have to ensure follow up and maintenance, and this is very very important, otherwise the buyer would never come again to you, never buy again from you. So what do we mean by follow up and maintenance? Once the order has been placed by the buyer, now you ensure that the ordered product is delivered on time, it is properly installed. In many cases, for example technology products like generators, like refrigerators, you need to install the product also, so you have to ensure that the product is properly installed, and then the use instructions are properly given to the buyer how to use the product. He has been properly given the training on using the product. If the training is missing and somehow because of the lack of training, if the buyer is not able to handle the product well and there is some problem with the product, he is never going to blame his own self, he would be blaming you only. So you ensure that he is also provided training on how to use the product. Again, whatever queries are there at the buyer end, you have to respond promptly, and you have to provide timely service whenever the servicing is required for the product. So whenever he is calling up for service purpose, you provide timely service and you respond to all his query in very very prompt fashion, because this would assure you, I hope you remember, we have talked about what happens in high risk purchases. The buyers, there is some kind of post purchase dissonance. They feel once they have placed the order, they feel that they have probably made a wrong decision. Now if you do all these things, he would be assured, the buyer would be assured that no, he has not made a wrong decision. Why? Because had he made a wrong decision and had your product not been a quality product, you would never have called him again, you would never have provided him timely response to his queries. So he is assured that your product is good quality, and he is assured about his decision of buying product from you. So that is why these things are very very important. Now this is what follow-up is all about. And then what is maintenance? Maintenance is, you are not going to sell just this product to him. You are looking forward to his lifetime purchases. For example, if you have sold him one car, maybe after 10 years or maybe 7-8 years he would want to get his car replaced, or maybe he would want to upgrade to a higher model. So you are looking at that prospect also. You are not looking at this one purchase only, you are looking at the customer's lifetime purchases. So over a period of 30-40 years he might be buying cars 3 to 4 times. So you are not trying to sell him the product this one time only, you are trying to ensure that he comes to you whenever he thinks of buying another car or upgrading to another car in future also. So you would be basically focusing on the 3-4 occasions that he would be buying from you, and for that you will have to maintain relationship. How do you do that? You will have to make occasional phone calls and visits once in a while, maybe once in 7 months, 8 months. This is done by all good salespersons. For example, you can send him messages on birthdays, anniversaries and festivals. Now this is another thing that you can do. So these are occasions where you can call him up, and he would never say what is the reason for calling, and this gives you a reason to call him up, and there you can maintain a relationship with him. And this would ensure whenever he is buying something, some replacement, whenever he is buying a new product, whenever he is replacing the old product with a new product, he will first of all consult you. Not only this, if he has some other people, his acquaintance who are interested in buying the car that you are selling, then he would probably also connect you to those customers. So this is again going to help you in that sense. Also you will get some referrals also from this particular buyer, right? And not only this, you prepare a growth plan for the buyer, or for the account basically is used in B2B. When you are selling to a particular firm, now that particular firm would be known as an account. So buyer is basically retail buyers, so account is some business firm. So for example, if you're selling to schools, now that but one school is one account, right? And you have to prepare growth plans, how you are going to cross sell and upsell to this buyer. What do we mean by cross selling? For example, I'll give an example in some slightly different context. For example, if you have sold a car to somebody, now while somebody has purchased a car, he might also want to purchase mats. He might also want to purchase, for example, some decoration for the car. So that is cross selling, trying to sell those decorative items for the car. And what is upselling? Trying to sell him a higher version which is costlier. So that is upselling. So you can try to cross sell other products apart from the car that he has bought, other products. So that would be cross selling and upselling. And you can also inform the customer about upgrades in the product. So you'll call him up कि sir, जो version आपने लिया था उसका नया improved version आया, would you be interested, right? And you can also give him loyalty offers. Sir, हमारा नया loyalty program आया है, ये पुराना product अगर आप लेंगे और नई कार आप परचेज करते हैं तो सर आपको 30,000 का कैशबैक मिलेगा. So these are loyalty offers. So you appraise him of these loyalty offers so that he can be sold more number of products in future also. So this would be the basic idea, and that is why this step is very, very important. Though this product has already been sold, but this particular step is very, very important. So that's all from my side in this particular session. The last session that we'll have on this particular unit, I'll also be showing you the marks that you have been awarded till date, and after that we'll have a test, so be ready for that also. Thank you very much for your